Hello, and welcome to the Lexanada project, and you're a part of it. I haven't always been so much into video games. The first console that I got was a Nintendo GameCube, and I bought that when I was starting Swedish 6th grade, which is about 10-11 years ago. And one of the first games I got for the console was The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. And I loved that game, and it was the first game in the series that I owned myself. I had played both Ocarina of Time and A Link to the Past at some friends' places, but I hadn't really had my own experience, so to speak, with it. So this was the first game that I owned myself. So once the HD remake got announced, you could imagine how happy I was. So naturally I bought it, and I completed it 100%, and I'm ready to take a review on it. Let's go! So starting off, we've got the story. It's about our hero Link, who has his birthday today. He gets a telescope from his sister, which is a really odd present. Anyway, he uses this new telescope to look at the sky, where he sees a young girl in the mouth of an enormous bird called the Helmarock King, who is being chased by a pirate ship. They manage to land a hit on the bird, who drops the girl in the forest. So Link decides to go and rescue the girl. Once that's said and done, he finds out that the girl's name is Tetra, and apparently the bird has been kidnapping a lot of girls lately, like he's been looking for something. Once you exit the forest, you find your sister on the other side, and when she's about to run up to you, she gets kidnapped by the same bird. So you ask the pirates to bring you to the nest of the bird, which is on Forsaken Fortress. Once you get there, they shoot you off by a catapult onto the island, but they miss the target, so you get separated from your sword. So you have to find it. Once you do, you get into the prison chamber, but immediately get picked up by the Helmarock King, and he brings you to an evil man, who commands the bird to throw you away. You wake up some time later on Windfall Island, where you meet a boat called the King of Red Lion, who tells you everything you have to know about the man, who is named Ganondorf, the same Ganondorf that was sealed away in Ocarina of Time. He also tells you that you have to get approval of the gods to be able to wield the Master Sword. So you have to look for 3 orbs that makes the Tower of God appear. So the story goes on from there on. Now, what about the world and the graphics of the game? Many complained about how it's all cel shaded and it's just an ocean when the game first came out. And I can see where they come from, because 2 previous games we had for the home console in the Zelda series was the Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time, both for the Nintendo 64. And the graphics were fantastic at the time. And even when the GameCube was first announced, we got a little preview of how a Zelda game could look like. And then it all turned cel shaded. And what happened was that the director AJ Aonuma didn't want an updated version of Ocarina of Time, and once he saw the trailer for the Nintendo GameCube, he didn't like it at all. So he was trying to do something new, something more what he saw the Zelda series was like, and I'm glad he did, because I really liked how it turned out. Even if it's not finished for say, because there's so many temples that wasn't in the final game that were excluded because they didn't get the time to finish it. And they're not in the remake either, because they used them in different games that came after, like Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass, and also Twilight Princess. And well, to me it still felt finished. I was surprised when I first heard it wasn't finished, because it still feels finished to me. And I really like the ocean, because you could always go another route, and it felt so epic just sailing and take a time for yourself, not having to do always something. You could just take some time for yourself, and I really like that. Now, seeing as I make a review of a remake, I have to talk about the differences between the original and the remake. What has changed between these two? Well, if we skip the obvious, like the graphic, music and sound updated, we have the swift sail, which makes your ship always go fast. And then we have the picture box, which in the original only took 3 pictures, but in the remake it takes up to 12 pictures. Also, a new change in the picture box is that if you want to do the figurine collection, you can see which pictures you could use, which are all marked with a good. So you don't have to redo things like you had to do in the original if you took a false picture or a picture that didn't work. And then we have the Tingle Turner, which we had in the original, but in the remake we have the Tingle Bottle. Now what's the difference between these two? The Tingle Turner made you able to hook up your Game Boy Advance to your GameCube, and you could find hidden treasures, which eventually led to you meeting Knuckle, the younger brother of Tingle. But the Tingle Bottle, on the other hand, makes you able to hook up to Miiverse, and from there see what other people think of the game. Like, they could post pictures that you could use for the collection, or they could post like, I finished the collection, and have a picture of what you finally get, which is Link and the King of Red Lion. And do we have any other changes? Well, the minigames. For me, it feels like they're made much easier. Like we have the Witcher 3 Deku Tree, which in the original I felt it was really hard, but I haven't tried the original in a while. But the remake, I made it in like 8-9 minutes, and you get 30 minutes to finish it. And in the original you only get 20. And I don't know why they made it so much easier. It doesn't feel like it has to, which is one of the bigger flaws that I can find in the remake. Like, everything's so much easier. And I feel like it doesn't have to at all. If anything, I feel like they could have made it much harder. But maybe that's just me. So, should I stick with the original or buy the remake? Well, in my opinion, it's really hard, because I would buy the Zelda game even if they wouldn't have made any changes at all. But some of the changes made me feel like it's not as good as the original. but in the same time, many of the updates and stuff like that, like the Swift Sail, I love them, and I feel like they were needed because you use so much time changing the direction of the wind, and now you have the Swift Sail. It's really good. So I think it's a definite buy, unless you have the original and want to stick with it. But if you're new to the Wind Waker, then buy the remake. I beg you, buy the remake because it's so good. And that's all I got for today. See you next time.
Hooray! Yay!